will continue to bring you any debates that have been raised by the topics that we've spoken about, and of course wait for that final investigative report into the devastating Air India crash. But we move on now, and Taiwan is conducting its urban resilience civil defence drills this week as part of the ongoing Han Kuang military exercises. The drills, which began on July the 9th, aim to prepare the island against potential Chinese threats. On Thursday, drills were held in cities like Taipei, New Taipei and Taoyuan, simulating air raids, evacuations and disaster relief operations. The exercises will conclude on Friday in the outlying islands of Penghu, Kinmen and Matsu. Typhoon Danas recovery led to drill cancellations in Taiwan, Chiayi and Yunlin. Taiwan's military tracked 58 Chinese aircraft and 9 naval vessels in the vicinity of Taiwan between Wednesday and Thursday. France and Japan have raised alarms about China's growing military activities around Taiwan. France's National Strategic Review highlighted China's increasing manoeuvres, while Japan noted a sharp rise in Chinese naval presence in its southwestern waters. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te urged Beijing to resume dialogue on equal terms, stressing the need for diplomatic solutions to ease rising tensions. Well, joining us from Taipei in Taiwan is Ross Feingold, a political risk analyst. Ross, can I firstly ask you what the past few hours have been like? Of course, you join us from Taiwan where these drills have been taking place. Can you just detail for us what has played out?
Well, this afternoon between 1:30 and 2 o'clock, you were not allowed to be outside on the street. So if you were a pedestrian, you'd have to go into the nearest building. Cars and buses had to pull over to the side of the road, and people had to exit their vehicles and also go inside the nearest building. The mass transit stopped operating. People had to get off the trains and go to designated areas inside of stations. So it was a drill for an air raid or a missile attack. And actually, this has been going on for many years. It's not something new, but it is part of what is new is that the exercises were about 9 days this year, and that's double the length it's been in the past.
Yes, and Ross, looking at the international calls for easing of escalations, France and Japan both commenting as reports of sorties and naval vessels from China over the past couple of days operating in and around Taiwan. What does that global comment on these tensions say about the potential escalation of the Chinese activity around Taiwan and the potential for that invasion along the lines of China's want of reunification, potentially by any means possible?
Well, in recent years, we've seen a number of countries when they publish things like a new national security strategy, or when they have bilateral or even multilateral meetings with other countries, and they issue a statement that covers hotspots all over the world and has a lot of statements that we hope for peaceful resolutions. What we're seeing with greater frequency is that there's a reference to tensions in the Taiwan Strait. That's often in these national security strategy documents or in joint statements issued at the end of summits. And it usually says that we call on both sides to settle their differences peacefully. Sometimes it says we oppose any unilateral change to the status quo. But none of those kinds of statements that show up in security strategies or joint statements at the end of summits, whether it's issued by Japan, France, Canada, the United Kingdom, the European Union. None of those kinds of statements change what China does. And what is China doing? It's investing heavily in its military capabilities to include an invasion of Taiwan if they decide to pursue that. So statements of concern by other countries, they clearly have zero effect on China's strategy or planning.
Yes, Ross, to bring an end to this discussion, we have in recent times spoken about the Taiwanese people's sort of consensus and thoughts on the current tensions. But I want to flip that now to the drills, which are obviously ongoing, the impact of people's lives. As you're saying, people aren't allowed out on the streets during at this time. Is there any consensus amongst the population in Taiwan over these drills, or is there an understanding that it is necessary in the face of provocation from China?
I think the public generally understands that the military does need to drill, especially with the increasing threat, especially with the military's acquisition in recent years of a lot of new weapon systems, mostly from the United States. Some are domestically produced here in Taiwan. So I think the public is generally understanding and supportive that large-scale drills do need to take place multiple times per year, including this Han Kuang exercise, which is the largest annual drill that Taiwan holds. So I think the public is broadly supportive. Does that mean that the public is eager for war? Of course not. Most people in Taiwan prefer to maintain the status quo. They don't want to be part of China, but they don't want their government to take any actions that would antagonize China into launching an invasion.
Ross, as always, thank you ever so much for providing that unique insight. We here on NewsX World will continue to monitor